Welcome to Let's Make Cake. I'm your host, Michelle Pyle, and I am here to talk about how to kick depression and anxiety and make a great life. That is something that I did for myself, so I want to help others who might also be experiencing depression or anxiety. So today's video is going to be short. I just wanted to address something that came up recently for me. So I was watching a podcast a few days ago, and one of the people in the podcast basically said that people with depression, it's their fault because they think about themselves too much and think about their own problems too much. And if they would just think about other people and how to help other people, they would not be experiencing depression. And I laugh because obviously none of that is true. If you have depression, you did not choose to have depression. This is not something anyone would go out of their way to have. It is not because you think about yourself too much. I know lots of people who think about themselves too much or exclusively who don't have depression. So it reminded me of how there's still people out there who don't really understand depression and anxiety, and they do think like somehow we're causing it or we've created the situation, those of us who have experienced it. And I've had people in my own life say not that exact like explanation, but say other things about it to me. And I've also had people say things like, well, about why they don't have depression, and they sort of think, that they're just mentally stronger or something. It's very interesting how opinionated some people are who haven't experienced depression or anxiety are about those of us who have experienced depression and anxiety. So if that is something, if you've been in a situation or you've watched a podcast where someone has said something like that, for me, and I'm very grateful, I've kind of always been this way, I think. When I've heard people say things like that, I'm just like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I think it is important to have that mentality when you hear people say things like that, where they're alluding that somehow we're weak or it's self-inflicted or it's a choice. Obviously, if you've had depression or anxiety, like this is not something I would ever choose. Like I'd not, and it can come like out of nowhere, like you're just going along with life. And then all of a sudden, I always think of it as like all the lights go off and you're just like fumbling around in the dark. Like you can't access any good feelings. You can't access any good memories. Like everything's foggy and confusing and you're hopeless and there's just nothing is making sense. Like you wouldn't like choose that as a way to exist. So it's so obvious, I think, if you've had depression and anxiety that you didn't choose this. And it's not because you're somehow you think about yourself too much or your problems and you don't think about other people. That's not true, like at all, right? A lot of times, like it kind of goes hand in hand with like worrying too much about other people or society or how bad things can be, and you can kind of, fester and create even more depression. So I'm not really sure where this person who was talking on this podcast came up with this idea. I do think sometimes people are scared, like depression and anxiety are scary because it's like, why me and not you, or why this person and not that person. And so we kind of look for things to give like a reason or an explanation. And I totally get that. I just don't think it's super productive to blame the people who have depression and anxiety, that somehow it's their fault because they're weak or, selfish or something. Because that's not the case whatsoever. I do think what is hard is that while it's not your fault if you have depression and anxiety, you are the one who has to get yourself out of it. And that is the hard and frustrating part. And it took me kind of a long time to face that reality. I think I thought there was, a magic therapist who would we'd have a conversation and all my problems would disappear and suddenly I wouldn't have depression anymore. And that's not going to happen. There's no magical therapy session that's going to cure your depression. It's a lot of different things, and it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of developing new skills, new habits, changing relationships, ending relationships, developing new relationships, right? You have to create a lifestyle, a group of people around you, and habits and patterns and skills to support your mental health. And that is something that, that's what I did to get out of depression and to finally stay out of depression, right? So I still do things today that I learned when I was trying to get out of depression in order to keep me from falling into depression again. And that is sort of like the key, is that it's not your fault, but you're the one who has to get yourself out of it. And now obviously you need resources, you need experts, you need, supportive people and loving people around you to help you, right? It is like a group effort, but you're the one who has to do the work, which is the hard part, especially if you're in depression and anxiety. Like, doing that work starts out super, super hard. And the good news is it gets easier and easier and easier until eventually you're out of it. And then you create that lifestyle that's going to support your mental health moving forward. But yeah, this is a short video today, but it really, when I heard that person, I was like, I can't believe people still talk like this, especially in 2026 when we have access to so much good information. It's really weird to just be like blaming people for like somehow being weak or self-absorbed or something. There are habits that can make your depression worse and can keep you there. But I just like the initial, like, getting depression is not anything that you chose for yourself or for your life. And it's definitely not because you're thinking about yourself too much. That's not what causes depression. So it was just really, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm listening to this person say this. And it just reminded me of, experiences I've had in my life where people have, coworkers have said weird things, family members, God love you, but they've said weird things. And I think it's really important, if you are experiencing depression and anxiety and you hear people say something that's just, it's wrong, right? Like, this is not a choice. To experience depression and anxiety is not a choice, because no one would make that choice, right? It's a horrible, horrible, horrible existence. So you have to just reject it. And I fortunately have done that, like, since the very first person that said something weird to me. I was like, nah, that's not right. Like, I know I didn't choose this. It might be a little bit easier for me to know that because it happened at such a young age, but even an older age, I was just like, yeah, no, I would never choose this for myself. I wouldn't disrupt my whole life and, damage relationships, damage my career, damage, my hopes and dreams for my life. Like, I would not choose that. I know myself, and I know I wouldn't do that. So just know for yourself, if you hear things like that from, like even someone that you respect, like, I've watched this person on this podcast and I never would have thought they would say something like this. You just have to kind of just put it to the side and be like, it's, people are going to say things that are wrong, especially when we're talking about mental health. And just know that, this is not your fault. You did not choose to have this. Nobody would make that choice. It's not some weakness that you have. It is just this really, and I think that's why people struggle to talk about, like, well, why does this person get depressed but not that person? And there's lots of theories and ideas. I just don't get too caught up in that. Just like focus on getting better and staying better. And that is building those, skills, those habits, changing relationships, changing your lifestyle, building this like support system around you that's to support your mental health. And yeah, I did it, so I know you can do it. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. I remember when I was dealing with this, I was like, I just wish I had somebody to like talk to me and tell me like, you're going to get through this. You can get better. You will get better. It's going to be okay. There's a lot of noise out there, but I know that those of us who have had this and we've gotten better, we need to support those who are going through it. We have to be there for each other and help one another because it is a unique experience to have gone through this, right? Not everybody can understand. And even if they try to understand, if you haven't had this experience, like you don't understand. So that is one reason I'm here is I just want to be that voice, out there in the world that's reminding you like, this is not your fault. Only you can get yourself out of this through really hard work and trial and error and making changes. Because you do need like a supportive lifestyle and routines and habits and skills and people, right? People are huge. Changing, kind of maybe what your life looks like and who you surround yourself with. So all those things together are going to get you out of this. And it is totally possible. But yeah, if you have people who are saying things that are, alluding to the idea that somehow this is a weakness or we're weak people or, whatever, you just have to reject that because it's just not true. It is not true, not true, not true. And so I just felt that was important because I'm sure you've experienced that because I know I experienced it multiple times. And then I just experienced it this weekend innocently watching a podcast that had nothing to do with mental health. So I'm not sure why this person even said that in the first place. But yeah, we have to have that filter of like when people say things, we have to be able to reject it when it's not true and not helpful. Because yeah, it's just not true. So that is today's video. It's not very long, but this was an important one for me. Because it's if you are depressed or experiencing anxiety and you hear those messages, they can just make it worse. So you have to just kind of be like, no, I reject that. Michelle told me I could reject that. And she had depression and she got out of it. And you can too. And that's why I'm here, because I want to be one of the voices out there to help support you guys who might be suffering from depression and anxiety. Just know that it is possible to overcome this. So that's my message for today. And you can find more on letsmakecake.org. And I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you on Friday. Thanks, guys.